Hey, this is Jeremiah Warren. Welcome to aetuts.com. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a paper stop motion effect inside of After Effects. So let's go ahead and preview what this will look like. Now, this is a sort of rough-looking stop motion effect. Normally, when you see stop motion, it looks a lot better because, well, they're trying to make it look good. In this case, you're trying to create something to make it look somewhat degraded so that it looks like it's the actual stop motion. The more refined you make it look in After Effects, the less it looks like stop motion. In this case, you're trying to replicate stop motion instead of doing stop motion, trying to replicate reality, so to speak. So let's get started. Now, as far as materials that you will need, I did download this gray construction paper texture from Photos. It's Photos public domain. Just go to photos-public-domain.com or just do a Google search for construction paper texture, and it's this first result right here. This is the only element I'll be using for this, so let's hop right into After Effects and get started. I'm going to be doing this in a 1280 by 720 composition, just because it's smaller and a little faster. So let's drop in our gray construction paper texture. And I'm going to scale it down so that we don't see as much detail, and this will be the sky. So let's go to hue and saturation. We'll add that. We will bring up the master saturation. Oh, excuse me, we gotta colorize it first. Let's do greenish. Well, we gotta do blue because it's for the sky, and the sky is blue normally, unless you're on Mars and it's red, but I don't think that's true. I think I made that up. I think it's red. Okay, and that looks good. There we go. So yeah, okay, so we don't want to overdo it on the saturation, but that is a bluish color, and this is the background for the sky, so we'll leave that there. We're going to duplicate this, bring the colorized hue to let's see here, this is going to be green for the grass. So bring this down. So there's the grass, and then what are we going to do next? Then we're going to do this again, and go over here, bring the saturation down. We're going to go to add a levels effect, make this darker. So this will be the pavement. So this is going to be a darker color, so for the pavement. And we'll bring that down. So we've got that. Okay, so sky, pavement, grass. Bring the pavement down a little more. Let's name these as well. Oops. This is the sky. Oops, okay, yeah, so we got those named correctly. And now we are going to do the car. So let's, I guess we can just, let's see here. Let's just duplicate the sky and bring that to the top. Now, let's move that around. We don't want all the texture layers to line up the same, otherwise it will be obvious that we just cut the texture off. In fact, for this right here, actually, for the grass layer, I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees so that we don't have the same texture, because this, you see the pavement right here, that's the top part of the texture, and then the grass is also the top. So we want to rotate it around so we don't see the exact same type of textures. Okay, so here's the car. Let's get this area right over here for the car. Now I'm going to change the color to change it to a this is not really important for the car, so we can do any other random, we can do any random color. I'm just, let's say purple. I've never seen a purple car. Well, actually I think I have. So now for the shape of the car. Now remember, if this was real world, you would be cutting this out with scissors, and it might not be as accurate with scissors. So for example, let's say you accidentally snip off a corner, it's not gonna be a perfect cutout, so you're gonna need to keep that in mind when creating this shape in After Effects. So you're not gonna, like, for example, you're not gonna have a rounded a nice rounded edge. You're going to have sort of jaggedness along that rounded part. So we're not going to do a really rounded thing. We might go like that, round up, adding some slight corners and such. Okay, so this is the front of the car, and this is not going to be a very realistic car either. So do that. Okay, so there's our car, and then we need to create the windows, so we will just do that. And hit him to bring up the mask controls and do subtract on that second mask. Do that again. Oops. And again, excuse me, do the subtract on that other mask. Okay, I think it looks good. And then you could also, I'm not going to do tail lights, I'm going to add wheels though. For the wheels, I'm going to take the pavement texture, move it up, and I'm going to change the hue of it so that we don't have the exact same color as the pavement. Actually, yeah, I did have colorized, so I'm going to change the levels here. Let's bring up the saturation, there we go. I'm just going to slightly do that. So we have a slight reddish color for the wheels. Just going to create a sort of wheel shape. I think this might be too big. Yeah, so for the mask controls, you can just change the expansion. Actually, we don't want to do that because that makes the edges more soft, so I'm going to delete that. Actually, I want to turn that off and then draw the mask so I can still see the background. And you could do the same thing by just bringing the opacity down. Wow, my wheels are not looking very good. Okay, there we go. And I'm not trying to make these look perfect, so yeah. Okay, and let's turn that back on, and then we have our wheels. Okay, now we do need to fix this because you probably wouldn't get that kind of shape right there with scissors, so just bring that up. Alright, so there we have the wheels, and we have the car, and we have the grass and the road and the sky, and we need to add clouds. So I'm going to duplicate the sky background, bring it back to the top, and I'm going to bring the saturation down. I'm going to increase the lightness, so this is going to be white. And this is going to be called cloud. So let's create the cloud shapes. And again, keeping in mind that you're not going to have a nice circular shape like this if you're doing it with scissors, most likely. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about if you've ever cut construction paper with scissors. That actually almost looks like a car or a fish. You see that? Actually, that looks like Nemo. See, you have the tail, and you have his little fin, and you have his face, and you have his dorsal fin. I could have done an undersea world instead of just a car. Okay, so I think it looks good enough. It looks like a cloud, sorta. I'm gonna adjust it some more. Okay, and then we need to create another cloud. So I'm gonna duplicate this and move this mask over here. I'm just gonna change the mask itself. And there we go. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so, and I want to change this again because we have that rounded part right there, which you don't really get with scissors. Okay, so we have our clouds right there. Spaceman put that far apart. Okay, and let me name these again. So let's see, that's the tire. So we'll call this wheels. That's the car. And the rest is the same. So cloud, cloud 2. I'm going to recompose the clouds. Call that clouds. And then the wheels and the car will be recomposed. We'll call that the car. And then everything else will stay the same. Okay, so let's save it, because we always want to make sure that we save our compositions when we do stuff. Otherwise you will lose them, which is a pain. Okay, so now for the animation. The car is just going to go from left to right, so I'm going to start it here, and I'm going to bring up my position controls with P, and I'm going to start there. Let's make it about 6 seconds, and then bring it to the end. See how that looks. Okay, that's okay. And then for the clouds, I'm going to start them right there and move these apart a little more. Okay. And again, do the position. And we'll move these over a little bit. So it looks good. Okay, so so there's the animation of that. We want to also animate the pavement and the grass. So let's move them. Start right here. So just bring up position on both of those, hit P, then go to the end, and drag them that way. See what that looks like. Okay. So there you have some movement. Now, let's bring this to the... okay, yeah. Okay, so there we got that. Now, for the... I mean, right now it looks nothing like a stop-motion paper animation. It's very smooth, and there's no shadows or anything. So we are going to work on the shadowfication. No, actually, wait. Let me do the... let's do the stop-motion look first, because that takes... We don't want the drop shadows and stuff to slow it down. So let's I'm gonna make this change the background color to black, just so it's easier to spot the null. And I'm gonna create a null object. Let's just put it right there. This is going to be position, so it can be anywhere you want it to be, as long as it's inside the frame, of course. And okay, so position. Bring up the position controls with P, and select position, and then go to about 10 seconds and hit. I'm just gonna hit up 3 times and right 3 times. These are the up and down arrows, or the up arrow and left arrow on my keyboard. Excuse me, the up arrow and the left arrow on my... No, up arrow and right arrow on my keyboard. So we don't want to move it around too much. Excuse me. Actually, I'm gonna go right into the middle here. I'm gonna move it... I'm gonna move it to the left. Once or twice. Okay, so we're gonna select that right there. And we're going to go over to the wiggler, and for the movement, I'm going to put in 5 on the frequency. In magnitude, it was going to be 2, and I'm going to hit apply. So now you have this sort of wiggly thing, because it's the wiggler, and it looks a little too smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these keyframes by selecting them like that. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to keyframe and interpolation. I hope that's how you pronounce that. And I'm going to go here to current settings, and I'm going to hit hold and hit OK. And now you have a much more what's the word for it? I can't think of the word, but it's a lot more I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, but you can see it looks a lot more. It actually looks like it's kind of stop motion, because it's just moving around each frame instead of being much smoother. So that's good. And so we have there's the position, or the movement, null. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2 clouds. Actually, we're going to duplicate the null. So we're going to have this null. And, so we duplicate the one null, and the other null, we're going to move it down the timeline a little bit so that the movement is not lined up the same. So we're going to parent that null, or that cloud to that null, and then we're going to parent that cloud to that null. And then, when we press play, we have this wobbly movement stuff, which looks good because it's stop motion. So now we're going to copy this null, and we're going to go into the car, and we're going to paste it. And we're going to parent the wheels in the car to it. So now we have that, and let's move this down a little bit so that we don't line up with the cloud movement. There we go. So that looks pretty good. So we got the So there you can see they're starting to wiggle around. And now we're going to paste this null again right over here, and we want to paste it twice. So we have the null for the grass, actually 3 times, and then we also want to have it for the sky. So we parent the sky to the null, the grass to the null, and then the pavement to its own null. So we have 3 nulls, and again we're going to move this around. If you hit P, you see you still have the composition is only going to be about the composition will only be about 6 seconds long, and we have all this extra wiggle room. Wiggle room. See what I did there? So we can move this timeline down a little bit. And hit play. So there we go. Actually, I don't know, is that... I guess it is wiggling. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Okay, so that's wiggling around. Actually, for some reason the pavement... Oh wait, the pavement's not on anything, so do that. Okay, there we go, that's a lot better. So everything's wiggling around, that's great, we're happy. And now we need to do another one for the rotation, because your object will probably rotate slightly. So, I'm going to go... What did I just do? I'm going to go to the car. I'm going to do another null, and this time that's not the car. Wait a second. Why is that called the car? Hold on. What did I just do? Sorry, I just did something. Okay. Anyway, I did something there. Okay, so we're going to go to the car, and we're going to add another null. And let's make the background black, or the transparent area black, and then we're going to hit R for rotation, and I'm going to, let's see here, we're going to have, for the keyframes, we're going to put a keyframe at 0, we're going to go to about 10 seconds, and we don't want to rotate it much at all. So let's say 0.3. And then we're going to go to the middle and hit -0.3. So there you can see how it rotates. And then we're going to select all those, and we're going to go to the wiggler again. And for this time we're going to put in a for rotation we're going to do 3.0 and then 2.0. So let's see here. Oh, we got to hit wiggle first. Okay, so select those and hit apply. So it's really smooth. So again, we're going to select all those keyframes, keyframe interpolation, and go to current settings, and then hit hold. Okay. So there we go, and it's a lot more. It looks like it's more stop motion now. So we're going to copy this null, and we're going to parent. We need to, since it's rotating, we need to center it around, put it in the center of the object. And we're going to redo some of the linking. So we have, let's call this rotation. Now here we have movement. So we're going to parent the car and wheels to the rotation, and then the rotation to the movement. And copy that rotation null. So there we go. And then we're going to go to clouds and do something again. So we have rotation. We actually have to do rotation twice. Let's call this movement 1, movement 2. So duplicate that. Shift D, or excuse me, Control D for duplication. And then bring up this rotation, put it in the center, the cloud. You can see the point that it rotates around. We want that to have we want to have it in the center of the cloud. And then the other rotation, we will bring that for that cloud. And so that's that. And let's move these under their clouds. So that rotation's over there, and then you just go here. And this rotation is for that cloud, so they're next to each other. Okay, so that cloud will be parented to that null for rotation, and then this cloud will be parented to that null for rotation, and then that rotation will be parented to the movement, and that rotation will be parented to that movement. And then we press play, and we get this awesome look. So, and again, we need to move these rotations a little bit so they don't line up the same. Rotation 2, let's go to the car, let's do the same thing. And we already have that null copied, so we can paste it again. And let's see here. And I'm going to do this for the background, or for the sky. So we're going to parent the null for the sky movement to the rotation null. And now you can see the background. Actually, that's a little too much for the background, so I'm going to delete that. I'm not going to have the I'm not going to do the background and the sky and the grass, because technically that's just the edge of the paper, so you probably wouldn't have as much rotation, I guess. And then I'm going to go here to about 6 seconds. I'm going to hit N to bring down the composition length. And I'm just going to hit render to see what it looks like. Okay, so it's starting to look more stop motion-y. We just need to bring the frame rate down. So to do that, we create a new adjustment layer, and we're going to bring up the posterize time effect, put that over the adjustment layer, and bring it to 12 frames, and hit render. Okay, now it looks significantly more like a stop motion animation because of the frame rate decrease. Usually when you are recording stop motion, I believe it's normally around 12 frames a second, or I think it's like they shoot 2 pictures for every frame. So this is much more stop motion-y looking because of the decreased frame rate. And you could even do something where you change between the frame rates. You could do like 8 frames per second. Let's see what this looks like. See, that looks even more stop motion. You could, with the keyframe, you could keyframe between 8 frames a second and 12 frames a second to kind of change things up. So that's looking pretty good right there. Now we have that, but the objects really don't blend in with the background very well, or their other. I mean, it's all flat looking. So we want to add some lighting and shading. So we're going to go into the clouds. No, sorry. We're going to add a drop shadow. Bring that over here, and we're going to start with the clouds. And right now it's a little too harsh on the shadow, so whoops, let me select that. Let's decrease the distance about 1.1, or just 1, and then bring the softness to about 2. Actually, bring the softness to about, wow, that's a little higher. Let's say 5, and then bring the opacity to about 30%, or 32%. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to go to the car. Now I could just put this on the whole car composition, but because we have this tire here, I'm going to have to put that on the tires themselves. Excuse me, on the wheels or tires. So let's make sure that works. Okay, yeah, and then on the car itself. So then when we go to the composition, there you go, we have the shadows and everything. Actually, I think we do. Yeah, we have the shadows. Very faint. And then for the grass, we're going to paste that on, and then paste it onto the pavement as well. Actually, for the, let me make sure to copy that over. Yeah, softness and everything. Okay. See, grass. Good. Okay, and I mean, you can play around. Well, let me think it. Okay, it's not exactly what I want. Actually, let me increase the softness. You can probably change it around for various areas as well, because various parts would have more distance. So I'm going to change it a little bit for the background parts right here with the these papers. So let's say 12% on the opacity, and then softness is 44 with a distance of 8 for the grass and for the pavement. There we go. And then for the car, where's the car? And also, since the clouds are white, the shadow shows up more. So for the car, let's make the background transparent. Let's change the transparency with the whatever that pattern is called. And then for the for that, let's bring the distance up to about 6, and the opacity to about 17. So distance 6, opacity 17. Okay, that looks better. Alright, so we have that, and now I'm going to add the exposure change, because, well, okay, normally in a stop motion you would not really have a change in exposure, but if you've ever seen a non-professional quote-unquote time-lapse, or, excuse me, not time-lapse, stop motion, you will have some changes in the shutter or the aperture, which increases and decreases the brightness. So I'm going to add a adjustment layer, and I'm going to go and bring up the exposure effect, drop that in, and let's go start at the beginning. We're going to put a keyframe at 0, and then go to the end, and put a keyframe at, let's say, oops, that's too much, say 0.5, and then go back to the middle and do 0.2. So we're going to have to drop that down, open up the exposure, it's under master, let's move that to the center, and let's select all those and go to the wiggler, and for that we're going to do 3 and 0.5 and hit apply. Okay, and we're also going to have to right click and go to, actually let me think here, if we put it under, if we put the exposure under the time adjustment layer, I don't think we are going to have to do the interpolation adjustment, so let's hit render. Okay, so that, I think it looks good. Now it does get a little too bright, and instead of refining the wiggler, I'm just going to change the opacity to about 51%, so it's not as drastic of a change, but you do see that the exposure changes slightly. And oops, I accidentally selected that. I'm gonna unselect that. Okay. Whoa, what did I just do? Let me do Control Z. Okay, I accidentally mass selected something. I think it was that. Anyway. Okay, so we have to change the opacity again. So 48%. We still see that change in the exposure or whatever, but it's not as drastic. And then I'm going to add another adjustment layer, and I'm going to do the levels. Okay. Let's just make this dark. And I'm going to double click on the ellipse tool for ellipse tool. Okay, I'm creating an oval mask, and then I'm going to select subtract on the mask shape and bring up the feathering and bring it up a little more, and then change the expansion. Okay, we just want to add sort of a lighting effect there. And then you can also create another adjustment layer and just change the overall curves to make it look the way you want. So there you go. Alright, so let's hit render again. Awesome. I think it looks good. It has that sort of stop motion jerky effect, and I think we're done here. Now, just one final thing, since this was technically, if it was a real stop motion, you would have you might not be perfectly focused, and you would have color noise, or not color noise, you'd have grain, or noise, whatever, depending on the camera you used. So just add another null, or adjustment layer, or you can use the existing one, whichever one you want to do, and I'm going to add some noise here, just very slight. I'm going to turn off color noise, let's say 2. I'm going to zoom in and see, that's too much. So let's say 3, and it's probably not going to be very noticeable. But we just want to have it there. Yeah, you can see it in the black, so between 2 to 3 on the noise. And then I'm going to add a Gaussian blur, and we're just going to do 1. Well, let's do 0.5. There, so it's just slightly blurred and slightly soft. Okay, so there you have it. That's how to create a fake stop-motion paper effect in After Effects. I hope you learned from watching this, and I hope it gave you some ideas and ways that you can use this in your own projects. One thing that people seem to overlook when they watch this, they'll go, "Oh, he didn't cover this exact specific thing, he did something else that I don't want to do." Well, no, you take the techniques they use in that tutorial and you apply it to your own uses. For example, here we talked about the wiggler. I mean, just the wiggler itself has so many uses. I'm getting lost, but okay, maybe my tutorial isn't the best example of it. But whenever you do watch a tutorial, don't think of it as watching a tutorial on how to make that specific effect. Think of it as a tutorial showing you how to use various techniques to achieve various looks. One tutorial can teach you multiple things that can be used in various other projects, not just how to create a stop motion effect or how to create a lightsaber. It has a very broad spectrum. So you can visit my website at jeremiahwarren.com or go to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/jeremiahjw. And that's all for the pimping of my own personal sites. I hope that you found this tutorial useful, and I hope you enjoyed watching. So until next time, this has been Jeremiah Warren with aidtoots.com, and peace out.